Hello, wonderful all-star 7th and 8th graders. Today we will be going through how to solve one-step multiplication mathematical equations with negative integers. So last week we solved one-step multiplication mathematical equations with positive integers, but now we've had some time to practice with our negative numbers, and we will go ahead and add that to what we already know. So for this lesson, you are going to need a sharpened pencil with an eraser, your calculator, and your guided note sheet. You'll follow along and fill in the spaces as you are prompted in the video. So let's review once again what an equation is. It's a statement that the values of two mathematical expressions are equal, so indicated by the equal sign. So you can see 5x equals 15, so they're equal. So an inverse operation is an operation that's opposite of the other. So the inverse of multiplication is division, and the inverse operation of division is multiplication. So what does it mean to balance an equation? Well, the definition of the word equation means that both sides are equal. So finding the correct value of the variable will balance the equation. So let's go through some rules when working with negative integers. Now, when you're multiplying or dividing negative integers, the rules are the same, which is why I have on here multiply and divide. So a negative number multiplied or divided by a positive number is a negative number. A negative number that is multiplied or divided by a negative number is a positive number. And of course, a positive number that is multiplied or divided by a positive number is a positive number. So make sure that you keep your guided note sheet. You can use these when working on the problems, and reference these rules while you're working through the task cards, because it can get a little bit confusing until we have some time to practice with it and it becomes something that we're familiar with. So let's go ahead and start a one-step multiplication equation. Now these are just like the other ones that you did. Here we have negative 3x equals negative 24. So in order to look at what our inverse operation is, we have to figure out what we're doing. So here we have a negative 3x, and the coefficient of negative 3 is being multiplied by x. So we're going to put here times negative 3. That is what's happening to x. It's being multiplied by negative 3. The inverse operation of multiplication is division. So we're going to put division there. So divided by, and the coefficient was negative 3. So we know that we have to divide, both sides by negative 3. What you do on one side, you have to do on the other in order to keep the balance of the equation. Okay, now this is a fraction bar. We don't write the division sign like that when we're working with equations like this, because we're 7th and 8th grade mathematicians. So we have our fraction bars there, but that means the same thing. So negative 3 divided by negative 3 cancels it out. So we have 24 divided by negative 3. Now, if you reference your rules, you know that a positive number divided by a negative number will result in a negative number. So you should get x is equal to negative 8. Okay, so the number will be negative, and you can look at that and say, okay, I know my number is going to be negative, and you can go ahead and do that in your calculator and see if 24 divided by negative 3 is negative 8. But we're not finished, because we have this very, very important step here of checking our answer. Okay, it's very important that you check your answer. On your test, you will be required to follow all 3 of the steps, including checking your answer. So you could lose points, or you will lose points, if you don't check your answer. So the first thing that we do when we're checking our answer is we write down the equation exactly like it was given to us. Okay, so negative 3x equals 24. That's what I wrote. So negative 3 multiplied by negative 8. And I used a dot instead of an x because I don't want to confuse myself and think that it's a variable, equals, oops, my negative disappeared there, 24. Okay, do that on your calculators and see if -3 multiplied by -8 is in fact a positive 24. And it should be. Raise your hand if you did not get that answer, and I will come over and assist you. Okay, so we know that that's correct. Put your check mark on there, and we did an outstanding job with that one. Let's try another one. So we have 7x equals -21. I'm using this bright yellow color because I'm hoping that it shows up a little bit better. So we know that x is being multiplied by a positive 7. And the inverse operation of multiplication is division. Our coefficient, or the number that's being multiplied by x, is 7. So we know that we need to divide both sides by 7, right? 7 cancels out 7. We have x is equal to, and go ahead and do that on your calculator. You should have the answer of -3. Okay, now notice how we have a negative divided by a positive. In our rules, we know that a negative divided by a positive should in fact be a negative, and ours is, but we're not finished. We have to check our answer. So we have 7x equals -21. 7 times -3, because we got a -3 for the value of x, equals -21. Do that on your calculator to check it, and you should have -21 is equal to -21, and that is in fact equal, so we know that our answer is correct. Let's move on to the last practice problem here. So we have -9m equals -18. So a lot of you may have looked at this problem and thought, oh my goodness, what's going on here? What is that m? I have no idea what to do. Remember, we talked about our variables before. They can be any letter of the alphabet. They can be X, they can be Y, they can be A, B, C, they can be the first letter of your name, whatever. The variable is just an unknown number. So it doesn't matter that it's an M. We solve it exactly the same way that we would if it was an X. Now, a lot of mathematicians just use the variable of X as a matter of just habit because they're used to that. And I do that quite often if I'm making up problems. I use X quite a lot. So I'll have to make sure that I pay attention and try to use other letters as well. So that when you see that on the test, you don't get scared. But don't be afraid by variables that are different than X. You solve them exactly the same way. So we have the inverse operation we have to find. So what's happening to m? It is being multiplied by the coefficient of a -9. We know that the inverse operation of multiplication is in fact division, right? So we are going to divide by the same thing that it was multiplied by in order to undo or balance that, right? So -9. So I'm going to go ahead and make my fraction bar here, which means -9 divided by -9, and -18 divided by -9, right? Okay, so we know that -9 cancels out the -9, and we have our variable of m. And this is interesting, so let's think about our rules. A negative divided by a negative is going to equal a positive, right? So go ahead and do this on your calculator. -18 divided by -9. If you don't even need your calculator, that's fabulous too. So you should have gotten an answer of 2, positive 2, right? So let's go ahead and check our answer. We know that -9m equals -18. And I copied this exactly like it was given to me. I didn't change it at all, right? Okay, so -9 times a positive 2 equals -18. Okay, so do this in your calculator. Does -9 times 2 equal -18? You should have -18 is equal to -18, and those are in fact equal. Okay, so I checked my answer. I knew that was correct. And if I did get an incorrect answer, I would know that I did something wrong, and I would have to go back and go through the steps and identify where I went wrong. So you guys have done an outstanding job. Let's go ahead and get ready to do some practice.